think people get excited about Andre Johnson? I think people love him here in this town. And how couldn't you love Andre Johnson? We're talking about not just a wide receiver who produced despite not the best quarterback play, to put it politely. A guy who, as a wide receiver, is about as stoic as it gets. A true professional. Not one to call people out. Very quiet unless he felt the need to speak about something. And by the way, Andre Johnson's probably the only person that was associated with the Texans organization that had the balls to put his name on disliking Jack Easterby. He's the only one. So there's a lot of things to like Andre Johnson for. Also, he beat up Cortland Finnegan once. That was fun. He is one of 15 Hall of Fame finalists for 2023. And my question for today's show is if you think Andre Johnson's going to make it into the Hall of Fame this year. Because I thought long and hard about it yesterday, and then I did all of the math today. And I don't think he's going to make it again. And maybe that's not news to you, but as someone who's been in Houston for much of the last 10 years, the amount of people who have told me that Andre Johnson was a first ballot Hall of Famer, a superstar athlete across the NFL, I would nod my head and say, okay, probably. But then take a look at last year in a Hall of Fame class that featured Tony Baselli, Cliff Branch, Leroy Butler, Sam Mills, Richard Seymour, Bryant Young, Dick Vermeulen, Art McNally. I don't even know who the hell the last guy is. He didn't get in. Wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. So is he going to get in this year? He's got great career numbers. 1,062 catches. That's 11th all time. 14,185 yards. That's 11th all time. 70 touchdowns. That was always his big bugaboo. What happens when you don't have great quarterbacks? 4-time All-Pro, first team. 7-time Pro Bowler. He led the league in receptions twice, yards twice. Is he going to be one of the 4 to 8 Hall of Fame finalists that get in 2023? A class that also features Darrelle Revis, Dwight Freeney, Joe Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, and Jared Allen. I'm going to stop right there. Those 5 are in. And I'll give you a little bit more of the resume in the next segment. But those 5 are in. So now it's a matter of, is Andre Johnson going to be able to cobble enough votes, 80% from the actual NFL Hall of Fame committee, to be maybe one of the last 3 guys? Because every year it has to be 4 to 8. You don't do more than 8, and you don't do less than 4. Here are the remaining guys. Albert Lewis, who was a defensive back for the Raiders and the Chiefs. I think he's in over Albert Lewis. Darren Woodson, who had a hell of a career with the Dallas Cowboys, but I also think is one of those guys that you lump in with just the great success that Cowboy team had. And while he did have 4 first-team All-Pro selections and won those 3 Super Bowls with 3 postseason INTs, I don't know that I'm putting Woodson over Andre Johnson's individual career. No slight against Darren Woodson, because I know there's a lot of Cowboy fans that are out there listening. I think that he is in over those 2, but that's where it gets tricky, because then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more guys, and he has to be one of the top 3 of these remaining 8 guys. That includes him. So let's take a look at it. Willie Anderson, who is supposedly one of the best right tackles ever. I looked at this guy at first, and I'm like, who the hell is this? And maybe it hurts him that he played for Cincinnati. Is there going to be a Cincinnati Bengals lobby in the NFL Hall of Fame committee? But 3-time All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler, and he only allowed 1 sack against 9 of the 11 all-time sack leaders over 13 years when he faced them. Now, he's playing right tackle, so maybe he's not going up against them that much, but I don't know. I think Willie Anderson has a decent shot. Offensive lineman's always tricky, you know? It's kind of hard to gauge what an offensive lineman did over his career outside of the All-Pro numbers and things like that. Then you have Zach Thomas. At first, I said Andre Johnson was in over Zach Thomas. Then I looked at his numbers. 5-time first-team All-Pro. Did not know that. 2-time second-team All-Pro. A 7-time Pro Bowler and a 2000s All-Decade team member. He played middle linebacker, and you might remember him for his Hall of Fame neck. But this is a guy that was playing at the same time as Ray Lewis in the AFC. Zach Thomas was a damn good player. I did not think that his accolades would be like that. So I don't know that Andre Johnson's got a better career than Zach Thomas. Patrick Willis, the only thing holding him back is that he only played for 8 years. Otherwise, he's in immediately. 5-time first-team All-Pro, 1-time second-team All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler, and we're talking about over a course of 8 years, played in the Super Bowl, Defensive Rookie of the Year. Yeah. Torrey Holt gets a little tricky here. 1-time first-team All-Pro, 1-time second-team All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler, led the NFL in receiving in 2000 and 2003, led the league in receptions in 2003, 17th all-time in receiving yards, 22nd all-time in receptions, played in 2 Super Bowls, was awesome in the first one, which the Rams won in 1999 over the Tennessee Titans. He also, though, played with Kurt Warner, Isaac Bruce, and Marshall Faulk. You can definitely hold that against Torrey Holt if you so choose. I'm not doing that with Reggie Wayne because Reggie Wayne has more all-time receiving yards than Johnson, more all-time receptions than Johnson. Wayne played, of course, with Marvin Harrison across from him, Peyton Manning as his quarterback, Edgerrin James during his prime as his running back. I can't give Andre the entire nod over Reggie Wayne because of the whole Wayne played in big moments, Johnson didn't think. Though I think there will be some who can make a better argument than me. I just don't think it's definitive that he is over that of Reggie Wayne. I also don't think it's definitive that he's in over Devin Hester, who was fantastic as a returner, But that also is subjective. What Hall of Fame voters are going to say that they will elect a returner who's a 3-time first-team All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler, and had 20 total return touchdowns. The last that I'm not sure he has a better career than, and I thought before I looked up his numbers that he might have, Rondé Barber, 3-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler, the co-leader in interceptions in 2001, 47 career interceptions, part of one of the best defenses of the past 25, 30 years. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense of the late 90s, early 2000s. He had a pick six in an NFC championship game that helped the Bucs get to the Super Bowl against the Oakland Raiders. So is Andre Johnson going to get into the Hall of Fame in 2023? I don't think he is. I don't know that there's going to be enough sway on the NFL committee from, I imagine, largely John McClain. If he could not convince enough people to put Andre Johnson into the Hall of Fame last year in a class that featured Tony Baselli, Cliff Branch, Leroy Butler, Sam Mills, Richard Seymour, Bryant Young, Dick Vermeil, and Art McNally. Andre Johnson, I feel like, should have been in that class. But if he can't convince him in for that class, how is he going to get him in for this year's class? Especially when you consider that there's already 29 wide receivers in the NFL Hall of Fame. I don't think Andre Johnson's going to make it this year. I do think he will make it eventually, and I want to make that clear. He is a Hall of Fame player. He is the best Houston Texan ever as well. At least, check that. J.J. Watt's the best Houston Texan ever.
Best offensive Texan.
Andre Johnson's the best offensive Texan of all time. Thank you, Sean, for that clarification.
J.J. Watt had a couple touchdown passes.
That's true.
Andre Johnson had more, though.
Not
as
that
many
more.
tackles.
Not that many. That's the funny thing with Andre Johnson. Look, Johnson played his whole career here for the most part. Like he did at the Titans and the Colts awkward year afterwards. But J.J. Watt played a couple of seasons in Arizona. I know some people are going to argue Andre Johnson's the best Texan of all time. No, but J.J. Watt was a superstar. Andre Johnson was a damn good player that was respected across the NFL. I don't know if that's enough to get him in this year. I don't. He will get in someday. I just don't think it's this year.
And Ward leaning forward. Flags come down. Oh, there's punching now.
Yeah, Finnegan and Andre Johnson going after it.
Clete Lakeman is going to sort it out.
There are personal foul penalties against both teams. Personal foul, unnecessary roughness after the play, number 80 of the offense. Personal foul, unnecessary roughness, number 31 of the defense. Both of those players are ejected. It'll be Tennessee's ball at the end of the run. First out.
And that's the right decision. Toss them both out because of this action right here. Finnegan gets the first shot, then gets his helmet knocked off. He takes off Johnson, and now Johnson is going to get a couple of good shots in there, or bad shots, if you will. And they're both gone, as well they should be.
My favorite part about the commentary when Andre Johnson beat the hell out of Cortland Finnegan is that Dan Fouts, his first reaction is got a couple of good shots and, bad shots, I mean. But then he goes a little further as this replay continues, and Fouts is like, man, he really got him.
Yeah, no, he goes like, ooh, landed an uppercut there. Like he's like working the telestrator on a boxing match.
What a great moment. Look, that guy was a tough, quiet SOB, and you didn't want to mess with him. And unfortunately, I'm just not convinced he's going to get into the Hall of Fame this year. He will get in eventually. Don't worry about that. But if John McClain wasn't able to convince the Hall of Fame voters, 80% of the committee, to get him in last year, I think this is a much more difficult class to convince the rest of the class convince the rest of the voters that Andre Johnson is in. And Sean Mapes, you used to produce a show for Howard Balzer, who is an NFL Hall of Fame voter based out of Arizona. You've probably heard him a bunch of times on the Killer Bees and some of the other shows here on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. And the process of voting for the players is a bleeping mess.
It is so. It's like learning how like British Parliament works, where you're like, wait, what is it? How's this all work? I barely know the U.S. system, and then this is like a foreign language. So what it is that they have a group of nominees, and they go and they send out ballots to all the voters, and they limit it to 25 semifinalists, and they send out another ballot to limit it to 15 finalists. And then what they do is they have a meeting, I think the weekend before the Super Bowl, and then they have this system where one of the writers will like nominate or like bring up a player to like make the case for them, because I know working with Howard, he made the case for Isaac Bruce, and one year he had to make the case for both Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt, which was hard to.
'Cause they're on the same team.
And to say they both deserve to make the Hall of Fame at the same time. So that was the kind of a thing. And Isaac Bruce got in, Torrey Holt's still on the ballot. So you see how that worked out. But so then after the 15 finalists, then they vote among the finalists to limit the list from 15 to 10. And then out of the 10, they vote for 5. And those 5 are the Hall of Fame class.
Generally. And it can be 4 to 8, though, that are in a Hall of Fame class, which makes it even more complicated. And
because you need 80%. And so normally it's or I think it's a minimum. Or there's some weird thing of like where you have to have 80% of the vote.
And look, I worked with John McClain, who is the Houston-based Hall of Fame voter. I like John a lot. I'm just asking the question, if last year he wasn't able to convince that committee to get Andre in,
how does case get stronger?
In 2023 specifically against all of those other guys. I don't know what else he can say other than the same things that everyone said, and that Andre Johnson's even said, I never played with a Hall of Fame quarterback, never played with another Hall of Fame player. Like, that gives him a leg up, theoretically, on Reggie Wayne, on Torrey Holt. That's nice. But does it give him a leg up on 3 of the all-time greatest pass rushers that we've ever seen in DeMarcus Ware and in Jared Allen and in Dwight Freeney? I know we're not talking about Bruce Smith or Reggie White or hell, even J.J. Watt, but those guys are very high up on the list. Joe Thomas is one of the best tackles ever. Darrelle Revis was considered to be the best corner of his decade. So those 5, I mean, they're probably going to get more buzz than Andre Johnson. And then afterwards, okay, I think you got to wonder if Devin Hester's going to finally get in, because Hester's the greatest returner of all time. That is a niche, and some voters are going to be like, But there's, I think, a compelling case to be made for Hester. And the problem for Johnson, and even with these NFL Hall of Fame voters who watch a ton of football, the problem for Johnson is going to be that he never played in significant games. And that shouldn't be held against him. It could strengthen his argument, but you have to have someone really convincing, say, look at who he was playing with. And, you know, we don't have some super powerful orator that's going in there. Like, I like John. I'm not going to say, though, that John's like the kind of person that can convince an entire room to stand behind Andre Johnson, you know? Like, you're going to need to have or hire like an incredible motivational speaker or something like that to come in. Maybe Ray Lewis could do it. Like, let's hire Ray Lewis and say, Andre Johnson, the man walked through the bowels of hell in Houston, and I touched his chest, and Lord, he was able to produce for years. Like, that could help, but you don't have that in John McClain. You know, that's not what you're getting.
I would like to hear John McClain try. When I look into the eyes of Andre Johnson,
I saw pain. I saw sadness. I saw a man who wanted to be free, who wanted to play with a Hall of Fame quarterback. Like that, you know, maybe that works. or maybe it scares off everybody in the room. I don't know. A couple of texts in regards to this conversation, and they're fair ones from the 281 in regards to Andre Johnson. Would playing with heaps of trash on the offensive side of the ball hold more weight than playing with Hall of Fame teammates? I mean, Andre said that, and he should get in, and he will get in. Don't worry about that. I just say this year, there are some other guys that I wonder about having more compelling cases. Willie Anderson, like, I had never heard of the guy, and I looked up his resume, and I'm like, damn, that's a good one. Zach Thomas has been waiting for a while. Zach Thomas is one of the best middle linebackers that we've seen in the last 30 years. Patrick Willis is on the ballot, I think because he's only played 8 years. I think that's going to be held against him. And I don't think there's a strong case to be made for Rondé Barber, but Rondé Barber, Torrey Holt, Patrick Willis, Hester, Wayne, Darren Woodson, all of those guys made plays in big-time moments and played in the playoffs a lot. And unfortunately for Andre Johnson, through no fault of his own, he does not have that on his resume.
And when you're down to finalists, and this is something that I learned from Howard, is that a lot of times you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to kind of judge them on their own merits. But when he was making the case for Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt in the same year, and other years where he was just making the case for Isaac Bruce, he would say that at the end of the day, it kind of does come down subliminally to you're comparing the receivers to the receivers and the pass rushers to the and the linemen to the linemen. Like, because it's hard to make the case of, well, I think Reggie Wayne is a better player, had a better career than Andre Johnson. I can't have Andre Johnson get in over Reggie Wayne. Like, it comes down to things like that where it's not the perfect process, I'd say.
And then think about this, too. 346 members in the NFL Hall of Fame right now. 29 of them are wide receivers. There's a lot of wide receivers in. And I don't think all of them should be in. Like, I think Andre Rison got in a couple of years ago. I don't think Andre Rison's a Hall of Fame receiver. But I think he's close. And that's where it gets tricky, too. Does the committee look at all the wide receivers in the Hall of Fame and say to themselves, there's too many, we need to go in another direction?
And you get compared to your era, too.
Right, exactly.
Where Andre Rison was better,
his statistics don't hold up the same way.
In context to his in the 90s and 2000s, then Andre Johnson was, Andre Johnson was a top 5 receiver basically every year of his career.
No doubt.
But it's hard for the cream to kind of rise.
And now, also factor in, too, like, statistics for wide receivers are getting better and better and better. And that kind of hurts his case, again, through no fault of his own. Like, There's a lot of extenuating circumstances against Andre Johnson, and I hope he gets in, and this is not me saying he should not be in this year. I'm just saying I have a hard time seeing him make it in this year. There's a lot of other guys that are in there, and I'm like, can I definitively say he had a better career than all of those guys when there's 5 that are definitely in? Like, I think those 5, I think Revis, I think Joe Thomas, I think Freeney, Ware, and Jared Allen, I think they're all in. After that, is he going to be are there going to be, first off, 8 guys that make the class, and is he going to be 3 of the remaining 10? Is he going to be one of the top 3 that's put in? Last year, he should have made it. This year, I don't think I can make the argument.
Yeah, and it's a thing where he has a pretty solid case to get in. It's just going to be a waiting game because he doesn't have that overwhelming case.
Right.